So I got into broadband and telecommunications almost 20 years ago. And most individuals who ended up, I would say, if not all individuals in the current generation who end up in broadband did not intend to be here. You know, we thought we were going to do something else, and then our pathways led to broadband and telecommunications. And once you're in it, it's a really fun place to be in an ever-changing environment. So where I differ from a lot of colleagues that I've had over the years, though, is a lot of individuals started really on the technical side, like yourself, started on the technical side of connectivity, and then learned more of the policy components of it along the way, and the digital equity components, the digital divide components along the way. I am the inverse of a lot of folks, where I actually started on the policy side of things and then learned the technologies along the way. So by background, I got started in nonprofit, working with low-income families to get them connected to computers and internet access at home. I ended up going to law school and focused my time in law school on continuing a career in broadband and telecommunications, which, as you can imagine, there weren't many of us that were choosing that career path. And by not many, I mean myself. So went to law school, wanted to focus on broadband and communications, did a stint at the Federal Communications Commission, and ended up back in the philanthropic space, again on the policy side, serving as counsel for a national nonprofit focused on broadband access, adoption, and use of technology. From there, I went on to practice law at a more traditional Midwest law firm in their broadband and telecom group. I spent 6.5 years of my career there working principally on the municipal side of things. So with local governments trying to figure out how to get the connectivity that they need. Made partner there, did the whole shebang. And then I ended up leaving to take an opportunity at a fiber startup in an executive role as they were seeking to pursue new models, working with local governments to get connectivity out there. And then at the end of 24, I opted to step away from that role at the time that they had a merger going on and start my own thing later that spring. So I think from where I sit and from my career path, I have seen broadband from a lot of different angles. As I said, I started on the policy side and kind of learned the tech as I go, especially as I was in-house at a fiber company. But I've also seen the industry from nonprofits' perspectives, from governments' perspectives, and I mean federal, state, and local, and then also from private entities' perspectives. And I have always said that I look at broadband and connectivity as a layer cake approach. There are different technologies out there, whether it be fiber or wireless or satellite or what have you, and now what we were talking about here with Dayton Photonics, and each of them have a distinct role in that cake, in making that cake. If there was a silver bullet to solving all of our connectivity problems, we would have already done it, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation today. So when I came across Dayton Photonics technology and the Theia technology, the product specifically, to me, that was another layer in that cake, and a really important layer that I think a lot of individuals either one, aren't aware of yet, or two, don't realize all of the capabilities for at this time. And so getting to work with the Dayton Photonics team to help evangelize that tech and what it can really do to supplement what some of those other layers of the cake are doing, really to me has been what's been most appealing about learning about this new angle in the broadband space.
Yeah, and you said it, Lindsay. I think from our perspective, it's a new tech, sort of. I mean, it has a runway, but in terms of useful, it's been very recent, right? And one thing that we kind of run into, and you've run into it, Tim, others, is that we're not trying to replace everything. As you mentioned earlier, we're trying to be an option or a complementary solution, not necessarily even for a primary backhaul connection, but it could be the secondary. Because clearly they all, whatever robust paths are built for fiber, there has to be some backup.
Correct.
Hopefully not on the same physical path, because that would not be a good idea, as you probably know, but maybe with our aerial fiber, right?
Right.
We've talked to some telcos, and they seemingly have use for the technology. they also aren't very familiar with it. So I think as a part of our job will be to continually educate, along with improving the product, which is being done, right? I mean, we know that once the manufacturing of the product becomes, a science, which, just a proper assembly line with the being able to put out as many units as possible, but the efficiencies of a manufacturing line that would impact the laser, which then downstream impacts the power of the laser, distance,
Right.
etc. So,
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like you were saying a minute ago, it's not a new tech, but it's new to people's realm of thinking. There is a lack of familiarity out there about it. And I mean, I would say, I think you and I would both agree, like ourselves included, despite our longevity within the field in our various segments. So I think that bringing awareness and familiarity to the product, and showing those use cases is going to be vitally important. And so like some of the use cases are kind of, each person kind of lights up depending on what their problem is. But really that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to solve a problem using this technology. Like any technology is here to do, it's here to solve a problem. So depending on what their issue du jour is, it's going to be a different use case for the Theia system. But I mean, already we're seeing providers, no pun intended, but light up at the idea of being able to use this for obstructions like railroads and waterways. It's no secret that negotiating with railroads and crossings is really difficult, especially for wired connections, obviously. And so, that predates fiber. That would have also existed in cable and,
and you've seen that unfold certainly with your background.
For years, yeah. And there are many legal cases about it as well. So having an opportunity to avoid those disruptions is really a win-win. It's a win for the rail companies because they don't have to engage in this negotiation either. It's a win for the deployers because they are able to continue their network development and not be slowed down by the negotiations. And again, ultimately, we're solving a problem there. Same thing with waterways. I know you all have a pilot to traverse some water up in Northwest Ohio. So that's an obvious use case as well. Others that communities have mentioned are, as you said, not becoming the sole solution, but supplementing and creating redundancy for what's already there. So one community that we talked with had mentioned they have a bridge that freezes a lot in the winter and makes them a little nervous for some of the fiber that they have running over it. So is there an opportunity to supplement that with a backup option being, a laser-based solution? And then in general, I mean, speaking of how it's no secret that there are challenges in negotiating with rail, it's no secret that permitting is an issue on all sides of broadband. And both sides have their perspective as to why, and we're not here to say which one's right or wrong. I don't think either one of them are right or wrong. They both have their challenges with them. And again, this is a use case for the Theia system because it can provide an opportunity for providers to avoid having to use some rights of way, extend the timeline in which they can continue negotiations with local governments for rights of way uses without delaying their network deployment. And that's ultimately the name of the game, is right now, speed. Speed is the name of the game as it comes to deployment. Whoever can get there faster.
Lindsay, you're a little bit more. You're referring to fiber miles, which increases the valuation of a telecom.
Yes,
that's the speed.
The faster
right?
you can get out there, the faster you can deploy fiber. That's what I would assume that's what every fiber company is being told to do right now, especially if they've taken on private equity dollars. That is likely what they are being told to do. So I think that the Dayton Photonics product is a great way to keep that tempo for companies that are under that mandate.
Well, and I think that in that regard, we kind of look at it as an acceleration tool, right? You're recurring. If you go way downstream, whether it's a business or a consumer, the monthly recurring revenue is only as good as the route miles you've deployed. And if this can be used in a middle or last mile sort of scenario, it gets the telco the ability to get to market faster. Why, to your point, why they continue to build.
Right. Well, and as we know, deploying your product is fast in and of itself. We're talking a couple hours. So nothing about using it slows it down at all.
It's another thing I think that you make a good point there. We've ran into potential customers that are kind of scratching their head that this can be deployed in a couple hours, right? It's, but when they see it visually, I think that kind of changes their mind, and they kind of understand how quick it can be deployed, how efficient it can be deployed, and reused. This doesn't necessarily mean, right, that we have the telco has to keep the Theia units up permanently. It may just be a stopgap, and then they take it to another job.
Which is one of the other things that I love about it, because again, you're not, for lack of a better word in this moment, stuck with this configuration that, well, shoot, now I've invested money in this and I don't really need the redundancy in this moment. So now what do I do? So like you said, okay, say that you want to deploy faster in a certain area while you're working through negotiations with whomever, insert entity X. This can be a stopgap measure while all of that takes place. And then once it is in place, you could take it down and deploy it to go over whatever your next issue is. Again, it's here to solve a problem. And so as different problems come up, it's almost a way, it's almost a way to play whack-a-mole a little bit, like with the different problems. You're not going to build the whole forest out of it, but kind of the whole like seeing the forest through the trees. Like this is kind of a way to fill some of the gaps. Again, you're not going to change the entire landscape with this product, but that's not what we're trying to do with it either. So
that's correct. And one of the counties we're talking to has a very mountainous terrain, and this seemingly is right on par with what they would need, not just in that particular connection, but the surrounding areas of the sort of the lower valley that they're in. And we've spoken to them. They're very enthusiastic. It's, as we've seen with a couple other municipalities and
right.
state or local governments.
Right.
And I think some of to put it in context, shifting gears just a little bit, we know that most WISP and most ISPs, maybe to some degree, they are used to using RF to get over some of these difficult areas. However, that comes with some baggage, not the least of which, the 3 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz bands are getting increasingly congested. We even heard that from one of our potential customers in the mountainous area. They couldn't even get a proper microwave link established if they wanted to. And so there's no FCC licenses. And if you really, it's a little bit too much in the weeds, but there are no SaaS subscriptions that a WISP would have to deal with, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, all that traffic has to be managed by someone, and that's what a SaaS does for a WISP. So this is a couple of hours are up, you got the backhaul, and you're in business, right?
Right, exactly. And I think that the other thing that really stands out to me when comparing this product to an RF-based wireless product, which again, as I said, it's a layer cake. They all have their roles. But the ability to really daisy chain these products also stands out to me a lot. So just to be able to, for those watching who don't know the term, essentially,
right. You gotta make sure we got
essentially place more equipment along the route to extend the signal further. In other technologies, your signal can degrade over time. The further it's essentially elongated. And the difference here, and certainly fill in the gaps because you know your tech better than I do, but with the Theia product is that there is no degradation as you daisy chain the system. So if you're starting at 1 gig here along the daisy chain, you'll still end up at 1 gig at the end. And that is a really interesting, again, solution to other problems that I've seen that stood out in talking to you all about the product.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, one of the other benefits, especially when you get into the satellite latencies, is the fact that we're 1 or 2 milliseconds latency, also not degraded along a daisy chain path, where
Right.
that's incredibly important for real-time use of backhaul for construction sites, for even traders now in terms of stock and Bitcoin. They need to have it fast, right? And latency figures into that. So that both of those make a lot of sense, and to an extent we continually try to educate, because we know that, and I was with you. Before I joined Dayton Photonics, after 30 years in wireless, I had not heard of this technology, and it became so fascinating. I couldn't wait to join the company, and as we continue to improve the unit and get it to a point where, if we get to a point where the feature set allows us to increase the laser power, distance, and backhaul with the same latency, we're really providing just an additional tool in the tool belt of these municipalities, telcos, WISP, to extend their networks, or even within the network, bridge a critical gap of some geographical sort of obstacle, like as you said, a waterway, a railroad track, some mountainous areas that we've seen. So yeah, I think all of that is really exciting as we kind of turn the corner here into 26 and finally have our sort of sea legs under us, if you will, to get things moving.
Yeah, I do too. I definitely agree. And I think what's been interesting to me is kind of what you just referenced, that lack of familiarity with the product or the service, and then learning about it and really wanting to know more, and immediately seeing the benefit of it. And I think, as you already referenced, that applied for me as well. But I would say that has applied in almost every conversation we've had about this with potential clients. There's kind of the like, what is this? Do I need this? We have a system, I know what I'm doing. And then as we go through the conversation, you can see the wheels turning of like, oh, I could use this here. I could use this here. And so I think, as I already referenced before, like the evangelism, the edification of this in the market and its role in the market really has an opportunity to change a lot of perspectives about it. And then in this time where there are many requirements within the states about where you buy things, where you ship things from, all of the above, the fact that everything is made here in the United States, basically in the Midwest where you and I are based, I think that also has some real benefits, especially as entities are starting to look at things like BEAD dollars and how they're going to utilize federal dollars and comply with the BABA requirements in those grant fundings. Yeah. Build America, Buy America. Yeah. 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 And even I think to that end as well, about having like a local for me in Columbus, but I don't know, if you're on the West Coast, I guess you wouldn't consider Ohio local to the US supplier. In addition to this, I think folks have been pleasantly surprised as well by the price point, because of the reusability of it as well. It's not that you have to rebuy the units every single time, and the way that you all are able to discuss the fact that if something goes wrong, essentially you ship a new unit. Like, it's easy to troubleshoot, easy to take care of, but it's not going to be someone coming out and spending 3 days and trying to service it. You'll get them a quick solution to fix whatever issue they're having, if they have one, in a quick period of time. And as well, that keeps a lot less people climbing poles, which we know is a dangerous job to climb towers. And so having the system set up so you can troubleshoot from the ground what is going on. So you can look through the camera to see, is it dirty in any way, which is unlikely given the hood, before you keep sending people up. I think that is also a really great benefit to supplementing a network with this technology in terms of just worker safety.
Yeah, and I think, as you're mentioning there, it's a way to extend an investment for some of these folks that maybe aren't high-end telcos that have a bigger budget, but trying to build the product lifecycle, which we are doing, to make it retro. You could retrofit the units with the newer, for lack of a better word, the newer technology that would follow up what we have right now. The hope is to, and the goal is to focus in on how do we just upgrade the existing units. Again, so that's cost avoidance. If they don't buy another pair, that's not. I mean, we would love them to buy another pair.
Sure.
But we have to protect the investment that they make too. And the whole fact in that case where this is a mobile solution that can be put up and taken down in hours, not even days, we want to make sure they get the most out of that investment.
Which actually, every time you say something, I'm like, oh, and this, oh, and this. So I'm sure we're far over our time. But speaking of the mobile units, I think we would be remiss if we didn't also discuss the fact that communities have raised this as an emergency management tool. So if something goes wrong and connectivity is impacted, this is, again, a quick solution to get connectivity back up. And that has also been really appealing to some of the communities specifically that we have talked to, in addition to the provider side of things as well. But like I said, I don't want to end the conversation without raising that as well.
Totally agree. I think that's, in addition to that, we even see some of the really urban areas that you would not think maybe this would play in. However, if you're in an area where you manage parks, for example, typically you cannot dig or trench or even aerial because it's just an eyesore. And this allows connectivity even within an existing ecosystem that maybe bridges a gap to an area that they need fiber or transport to an area, even if it's for security cameras. And no better way to do that than having a 10 gig backhaul with low latency for high resolution video over using Theia. So I agree.
Right. Well, and I mean, so I'll use myself. I'm in a historic area of Columbus, hence the old brick house behind me. And you can't dig in my area. They don't allow it. You're not allowed to bury connectivity here. So it's all strung aerially. And from my viewpoint, the poles are getting a little full. So there's also space considerations. Maybe you intend to deploy, but the access you need on the structures may not be there in the location that you need it. So again, Theia can be a solution.
And the final thing I would say is, you and I both know, you know better than I, but you just don't go, deploy aerial fiber without the participation of the people that own the poles or the company that own the poles.
Absolutely.
And they have no motivation to help you.
Yes, absolutely.